house because I was like bringing over 6 dudes a night. Like, it just was never enough.
What?
Wait. As from Tinder or dating apps?
Tinder or Bumble. I got kicked off. I got perma-banned off Tinder. They will not have me back.
Okay, so here's the question of the day. Why are you here?
To clear my name, Trevor. I feel like a lot of videos of me on the whatever podcast and in general have been taken out of context and clipped and made me out to seem like a clout chaser or doing things for shock value, and that's not true. I will say...
Did you actually get death threats?
I did.
Welcome to Chew the Fat. I am your host, Smooth, and today we have a very special guest with us. I'm not going to go too far into the introduction and everything else. Right about now, we're going to jump right into the video. I'm going to allow my very special guests to introduce themselves. Like to hear it. Here it goes.
Hello, my name is Kelsey Davis. I recently publicly came out as a recovering sex addict. I am starting my own podcast on sex and love addiction and porn addiction, basically any type of sexual compulsive behavior. And I recently went on the Whatever podcast as well.
Okay, so here's the question of the day. Why are you here?
To clear my name, Trevor, to clear my name. There's been a lot of circulating, I don't want to say rumors, but just I feel like a lot of videos of me on the Whatever podcast and in general have been taken out of context and clipped and made me out to seem like a clout chaser or doing things for shock value, and that's not true. I will say I probably made I would say it wasn't the best judgment to go into detail about my sexual compulsive behavior, especially on a platform like that. But I definitely, and call me naive, but I definitely didn't expect it to get clipped and edited out of context as much as it did. So yeah, I guess people just like to take things and run with it. One edited clip got circulated by a channel, and then I think other channels just kind of took it and ran with it. It's being posted on Twitter now, so it's just really doing damage to my image, my family. Yeah, it's not fun.
Okay, so what I can say is, yeah, it was, and people don't understand how it goes in this particular space, right? And the media world. And that's understandable. So what happens is we are forced to, because once somebody does it, they're going to get the views. And if you don't do it, you're out of it, right? So it's very easy to just go ahead and, especially if you don't do your own edits. I do all my own edits. So things are going to come out the way it manifested in my mind, right? But a lot of people don't do their own edits. They send it to an editor, and the editor has one job. His one job is to get as many views as possible, right? And many times there is approval by the people who made the video. It should be approval. If you should know everything that's going out beforehand, right? That's correct. You should know you are responsible for anything that comes out, right? And if it changed the integrity or the entire message of what was released, then yeah, you should be approving everything so that type of thing doesn't happen, right? In this particular case, I could say that almost anybody who would have interviewed you that particular day would have probably made that type of clip, right? And it's not a good thing at all, but it's what social media has done to society right now, right? It's made us ultra competitive, right, and we have one objective: to get views or die. And that certainly got views, as you can see. right? It went everywhere. It's extremely viral. What brought my attention to it and what wanted me to make it an interview like this is when I saw it, I read what you said. I saw that you left a comment, and I saw a lot of I, and I was like, okay, this might be the actual person. So you mentioned that you were a sex addict or former sex addict, and that you actually had different things going on, right? So there was a condition involved, and that is some serious context that should be in the equation. It should be a part of the equation. Now, most people are not going to watch that entire podcast. I did because I knew I was going to interview you, but it was 4 hours and 51 minutes, if I'm not mistaken. Nearly 5 hours. That's long, and people don't have that type of attention span anymore. So the most that they can do is get the clips and put it together, and hopefully you would come and watch what's going on in the particular podcast today. Now, I know there was another person on there who was like an adult film star, and their husband was there, and he was getting a lot of treatment too. But the
they got brutalized.
Yeah, they were.
Yeah.
I don't know if they made those type of clips and everything too, but for whatever reason, yours took, right? And it's a bad thing, because what happens is a lot of times, like, men will see that, right? And there's a lot of angry men out here. There's a lot of angry men for different reasons, right? It's very difficult for men to obtain women at this time, and not for all men, but some men, right? If you're not in the top to 10, 20%, then you're just going to be angry, right? They have this frustration, and it's difficult for them not to project that towards women, right? Because women are the ones who aren't cooperating with them for them to fulfill their needs. And that doesn't excuse anything, right? And that's why I try to help the young gentlemen on a regular basis. Like, hey, look, listen, this is what you need to do. You have to improve yourself. Stop chasing women. You go ahead and get yourself right, and the woman will get in your way, right? You have to become competitive, because right now social media has destroyed what what sex is, what mating is, just any type of male-female relationship, right? It's been destroyed. There's very little we can do with it. So now I want to go over the video with you, right? And I want you to tell me to stop it at any point to let me know if you saw something that was inaccurate or something that needed more context. So here's your opportunity to do that. I'll go ahead and play the video for you.
My name is Kelsey. I'm 22. I go to LCC in Eugene, Oregon, and I am a waitress, and I also just started a podcast.
What's the name of the podcast?
Chronicles of Craving. It's kind of about addiction.
Any kind of addiction?
Sex addiction.
Before we go on, I do want to hear about this. You have a podcast. It's called Chronicles of Craving.
Yeah, so it's I had about 4 episodes up, and I deleted all of them. I want to kind of take like a new direction. I wanted to take like a new direction into the podcast. I feel like I kind of veered off talking about like a lot of red pill topics, and I just didn't want to do that. I wanted to concentrate mainly on sex and love addiction. And I also wanted to appeal my audience more towards males. I think I was appealing towards females, but I've been getting tons of DMs from guys that are, saying, hey, I think this is a problem for me too. What resources do you have, or what advice could you give me? So that's definitely a market that I'm looking to tap into.
Oh yeah, we're going to talk about that. After we get through this video, I certainly want to talk to you about that. Carry on.
Yes.
I'm a recovered sex addict. Mm-hmm.
Are you're
Yes.
recovering sex? Okay, we'll talk about that in a bit. Okay. So yeah, you mentioned earlier that you are a sex addict.
Yeah.
Recovering sex addict?
Mm-hmm.
Is there like how there's AA or NA?
Yeah. So I go to SLAA, which stands for Sex and Love Addicts Anonymous. Typically it's more women friendly. I just obviously like going to a mixed SAA meeting is like going to like an AA meeting in a bar. I have tried it, and guess what? I relapsed. So yeah, but
you relapsed with someone
At a
who
meeting.
attended the sex addicts meeting,
Mm-hmm.
who was also a sex addict. Is that pretty frequent occurrence?
I don't even know why they have mixed meetings. It's like, why even? It's literally-
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd almost be like doing like an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting in a bar.
Yeah. Yeah.
So okay, you
So
previous.
You want me to stop it?
I was gonna say he repeated my joke, by the way, which I found very funny. But
Go ahead. No, go in. Get into it. What was he gonna say?
I was gonna say, because I think I had just said, like, going to a mixed SAA meeting is like going to an AA meeting at a bar. And he literally repeated my joke, but I just found that funny. But
Okay, gotcha. We'll keep it going.
Yeah.
That's SLA. What's the one you go to?
SLAA, and it's an all women's. Oh, sorry, SLAA, and it's an all women's like Zoom meeting.
Okay, so
Yeah.
you're a sex addict. Okay, so what does that mean?
It can look like a lot of different things for a lot of different people. I'm also a recovered drug addict, but sex was kind of like my switch away from opiates. So once I got clean off of opiates, it just kind of transformed itself. I mean, it's always been a problem, but it really
Okay, so wow, they really want to interrupt you on your sex addiction story. So you said you were also addicted to opiates, correct?
Yeah.
Which ones, or?
Heroin and fentanyl. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if you can say that on it. Sorry, I forgot if
Whatever.
Okay.
It is. That's fine.
it's
I gotta stop you there.
Okay.
How in the hell were you able to kick heroin and fentanyl? How?
It was rough. It was really, really rough. And I didn't kick addiction completely. As I said in the clip, I definitely switched. It was my switch, sex and, various substances, and alcohol was kind of my switch away from heroin and fentanyl. So, but yeah, it was really hard. I had a really scary overdose. The last overdose that I had put me in a coma. So, that was basically my wake up call.
Okay. Listen, I'm gonna give you kudos for sure for being able to kick heroin and fentanyl. Like, that deserves some
Thank you.
recognition. No matter how you spin it, that's crazy and admirable. And I do want to. We're gonna get into that some more. We're gonna go with this clip. It was just that for fair use, we have to stop it at least a few times. You know what I mean? So don't worry about interrupting.
Right.
Please do, actually, because we kind of.
Okay.
All right.
It happened. Okay, so how long have you been clean on those?
I've been clean on those since I was like 18 and a half.
Okay.
After like my last OD, and it really scared me. So
Wow. Okay.
yeah.
And is it pretty common for people who have sex addiction to also have other kinds of addictions?
Yeah. My mom's an alcoholic, so obviously it's genetic, but she kind of knows, has always known that I've had an addictive personality. So
Yeah. So how did your sex addiction manifest?
it looked like a lot of different things. I think it started with can I say porn? Porn.
Let's say adult content.
Okay.
Adult content.
Yeah, it started with adult.
Hey, just so you know, if you're probably gonna refer to it at some point, like during your own podcast and everything, we call it corn on the side. Corn. That's all. Just
Okay.
yeah, and all most of the YouTube and the YouTube audience understands what we mean when we say corn. That's our substitution for. We have substitutions for most unacceptable words for the algorithm. So there you go.
Okay.
Anything you want to add?
I've heard OnlyFans. Oh, I was going to say too, I've heard OnlyFans referred to as spicy content, which I've always found really funny, but.
Yeah. I usually just say OF. You know what I mean? That's all. That's another one too.
Yeah.
So a lot of us know what we mean. So, and if they don't, they'll look it up. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yep.
All right, we're gonna keep going.
Content when I was like 9-10 years old or something like that. Yeah. So, and I kept getting addicted to it, and I like could not stop watching it. And then eventually it got to a point where like I was 19 and I got kicked out of my house because I was like bringing over 6 dudes a night. Like it just was never enough. Enough was never enough. So, yeah.
What? Wait. 6.
I'm just gonna say right here. That was a button, right? That whole what thing.
Yeah.
Okay, listen. I'm just gonna let you know we all kind of do that. I have my own.
What?
And I'm just gonna let you know right now. Just whoever did that, it's genius for like a hot take or soundbite, and it immediately makes whatever you're talking about humorous, right? So even though what you were saying was a very serious topic that you were talking about, when someone throws in, one of those,
What?
it's like now it's humorous, right? So people can't digest it the way that it should be just because of things like that. And that's what all of us as maybe not all of us, but a very good amount of us successful podcasters do, right? They'll hit that, and it makes it humorous, and we kind of forget about the context, right? We don't care about the context because we're only going to sit there for the 60 seconds that they give you and then just rock out with it, right? And I think that was like the beginning of it, because when I heard it, I'm like, damn. And coupled coupled with your delivery, which I feel like it sounded like you thought it was humorous too, right? And I know sometimes the best way to handle a traumatic situation is to laugh about it, right? And I understand where you may be coming from. You can correct me if I'm wrong. If that's not where you were coming from, don't let me put words in your mouth. But what were you thinking as far as your delivery? What were you thinking, like as far as like?
Yeah, so I've been told this, and my family tells me this all the time. This is like my claim to fame phrase that I use, like, you're laughing at me. This is my life. Like, this is my life we're talking about. So I naturally, and I think this is why, like, I've been able to be so successful in fields like this and in spaces like this. I naturally am just like funny when I speak, but I was really trying to be serious. Like I wasn't trying to make a joke about it, but I guess people could kind of see that I was taking it lightheartedly. I understand it came off casual as well. But for me, it was casual because that was the way I was living. So I didn't see it as, irregular, but.
Okay. Yeah. And that's what I want. This is the necessary context that we do need. Right. So right now, this is a chance for that, because people didn't get to understand it that way. Right. So we kind of have to make sense of it so people are able to digest it the way it should have been. But of course, within a 60-second clip, you can't. There's no way you're ever going to get a true meaning out of a 60-second clip, right? You only have an idea, and this I think is the wrong idea from where you were actually coming from, right? So that's why I wanted certainly for you to be able to explain that part, because I think that's the cause of it. Because I'm just knowing from as much as I've learned about people, and me myself, I took it that way, and it looked like you took it lighthearted. So everyone's definitely gonna laugh, right? Just like comedians laughing at pain, no matter what they say, it's all in how they present it. So that's I think is why people just thought this was a joke, right? But it's not really a joke. This isn't a joke, right? And I understand where you were coming from. I'm not knocking you for how you did it, because you just explained that's why you handle situations. But I think for other people, they're not going to get it. They're not going to understand it from your standpoint. You know what I mean? They're not going to get that part. So that's why I wanted you to explain it. So at least they can see where you're truly coming from, that you don't think it's funny, that you understand that. And we're going to get into it a little bit more. But I just wanted people to know from your mouth, like, hey, listen, this actually isn't funny, right? And now that people understand that you have a YouTube that's trying to help people not do this type of thing, right? So to help people who are struggling with this thing to do better, we can understand that you're coming from a good place now. We can understand, like, okay, this isn't funny. This is not cool. You understand that it's not cool. And you understand it so much that you took the liberty of wanting to do something about it. Right? So that's what I want people to get. We're going to keep it going.
Dudes Unite?
For like a consecutive week, yeah.
So 6 times 30? Wait.
Somewhere around there, yeah.
Hold on.
Well, 6 times 7.
Well, she said, wait, 6 times. Well, I'm thinking a weekday, a week, Monday through Friday.
No. Weekends were my rally days. What do you mean?
Oh.
Yeah.
7 days a week. Okay, my math needs
that right there.
Some more.
listen, the math thing, and that came up in the clip too, right? Within the 60-second clip. So it's like, listen, it was hard for people not to take it the way they took it. You know what I mean? Like there was a lot
Right.
added to this. There was a lot added to this. We're gonna keep it going.
Here. Oh, Eric, you're gonna have to hide that. I don't know, my fucking stream deck's scuffed. Okay, so 6 dudes a night, like at the same time, or like
No.
after the other?
Yeah, one after the other. Yeah.
And how were you meeting these guys?
Usually dating apps. I have like a hard time approaching men. I usually just wait until they approach me. Or I used to like to drink a lot too, so I would go to the bar, drink, and hook up with guys. Yeah.
Okay, so you would sleep with six guys a night. So like, would you slot them in like 7 p.m., 8 p.m.,
Yeah.
9 p.m., 10 p.m.?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
And then I would even, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I'd say I would even like have like my backup guys to where it was like, if this guy didn't come tonight, then I would invite this guy. And then if he did come, if the first guy did come, then I'd tell the other guy, oh, I'm busy. Like I can't, make it or whatever. So that like.
All right, I'm gonna use this opportunity of a stoppage to let's get the math straight on this. Now, from what it looks like on here, if the math is mathing, right? If you had a week, just 1 week alone, right? That would have given you 42 guys, if that's the way it went, right? If you literally went 6 guys a night for 7 consecutive days. I did hear you talk a little bit more about it later on in the 5-hour podcast. That wasn't it, right? So that isn't exactly how the math went, but it sounds really good in a hot take to feel like you're averaging 42 guys in a week. But I don't think that was it. Have you ever had a week where you had 42 guys? Because remember, and you kind of helped in it because it said 5 nights. It said for a week consecutive. Those are how the words came out, right? I said a week consecutive. And then you said no. He said 5. He's thinking 5 days a week. You corrected him. You said no, 7. So now think about it. We're saying, damn, okay, 6 times 7, that's 42. Holy smokes, 42 guys a week. Now we're adding that together. You're like 170 nearly in a month. And then, you know what I mean? So this is
Right.
processed based on the information.
Yeah.
I don't think that's the math, but you could go ahead and explain to us, and whatever you do want to include, whatever you don't want to include, that's fine. But you can go ahead and explain it in its entirety so people know the truth.
Yeah. So when I said 6 guys a night, I meant one night. But I wasn't quite sure on what he was like. It was like roughly averaging out to 6, but you can see me later on in the clip because he asked something like, what was the most in a week? And I said, oh, it's probably like 8 to 10. And he's like,
Yeah.
What did he say? He said something like, oh yeah, he said, oh, so that 1 6 in a night, you just went ham or something like that. And I said, yeah. So I should have said it was 6 in one night, but what I meant was when I said I was bringing home like 6 dudes a night or whatever, it was like that one night that I was referring to. So I think there was a little bit confusion. I definitely didn't help it. I will totally admit to that. But yeah, I mean, 42 dudes a week, that would be pretty insane. I'm not saying it can't be done. I just haven't done it.
It can be done,
so.
but you haven't done it. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, it can.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. If you want to clear the air and say what your actual total is, that's fine. If you don't, I don't care. But I know they already have a number out there. If it's inaccurate and you want to correct it, feel free to. If you don't care to, we'll move on.
Yeah, I'd say 8 to 10 was probably what it was. But and honestly, I even regret bringing it up at all because it just, A, it got twisted, and B, I think, again, it got taken out of clips and stuff. But yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Yeah, exactly. All right. So that makes a lot of sense. To correct that, to clear the air, that's not exactly how it went. We're gonna go ahead with the video a little bit more.
Did you have a spreadsheet like an Excel?
Kind of, yeah. I mean, I had to eventually, like, I had to write people's names down because it got like so insane. Yeah.
Okay. So what's the most amount of men you've hooked up with in a 24-hour period?
Probably like.
A little closer to.
Oh, sorry. Probably. I think 6 is like the most.
6 is
Yeah.
the most.
Yeah.
But was that pretty regular to have 6?
That wasn't the regular.
Oh, that was
no.
just okay.
Yeah, that was when I was like, I was like really depressed, and when I'm depressed, like I am going out. Like,
Were you using protection?
no.
No.
No. Mm-mm.
Okay. And you were
Okay.
meeting.
We got to stop it there. That part right there, it kind of worries me a bit, and but I want you to tell people what you think the importance of protection is, if any.
Yes. So of course protection is important. Always use protection. I would use protection if protection was provided. So it wasn't like I should have said, like what I should have said, if men came over and they had condoms on them, they wanted to use them, then I would use them, obviously. But if that meant that I couldn't have sex with them, then I wouldn't use protection. So yeah, but I would say most of the time protection was used. I just didn't initiate it. But yeah.
Okay, so if a guy chose to protect himself, then you would use protection. But if not, then
Yep.
YOLO. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Right. All right. So if you had to give a gauge and say, all right, look, what about a percentage, right? Let's say out of 100, what would you say would be the amount of time that you probably use protection? How much percent of the time do you think you roughly, just roughly, you don't have to be exact?
Yeah. Probably like 70 to 80% of the time.
Okay. All right. That's probably about what some of us do anyways. I know some people whose
Yeah.
percentages
Yeah.
do less, right? I know some people who just won't at all without protection. I think it all depends on the fashion that you're doing it, right? If it's a rando, then absolutely you should, no matter what they look like,
Right.
no matter what
Right.
they smell like, no matter how much they sweet talk or smooth or whatever. I think that if you don't know them personally and if you don't plan on being a co-parent with this person, then you probably shouldn't. You should be using protection, right? So
Right. And
that's how I feel about
I
it.
do want to mention,
Go ahead.
yeah, like it's not an excuse obviously, but I was either intoxicated like to some level or drunk not most of the time, but a lot of the times that I was not using protection. So it definitely affected my cognitive thinking skills. So that's also a factor in
Okay.
it. But,
Decision making. Absolutely. Okay. I'm going to
right.
get this. This is taking up hella real estate on our screen. So I'm going to try to get through the rest of the video. And if you do need to stop
Okay.
or go ahead, but I'm going to just finish this last little part so I can get the whole screen on us again. All right. Let's go ahead.
You said almost all of these guys from Tinder or dating apps.
Tinder or Bumble. I got kicked off. I got perma banned off Tinder. They will not have me back.
Okay. Maybe
Yeah.
for the best.
Yeah, now
Maybe
it
for
is
the best.
obviously, but yeah.
Okay, so I usually save this question for a little later on in the show, but do you have a sense of how many men you've slept with?
Yeah, it's honestly, it's not like 300 or anything. It's like 136, I think.
136? Okay.
Yeah. Which is a lot, but
Sure.
yeah.
Okay.
I wonder
My name
what
is Kelsey.
I wonder what the homegirl that was 2 slots over you, what her body count was. Probably pretty high. The one with the red hair.
Oh, yeah, she not too high. She said it was like 20 something. But it depends on what you look at as high.
The lie detector test determined.
And she could be
that was a
lying.
lie.
Yeah. So yeah.
She's in the adult industry. Yeah, it's a different ball game. She's done adult films and OF with other partners. 20 something. No, that's your normal everyday woman her age. That's their numbers, right? And that's their
Right.
So one of the last couple of things that he said, I want to address those two. The one thing that I wanted to hear was, how on earth do you get permabanned on Tinder. I didn't even. I promise you, I did not know that was a damn thing at all. I never knew that they would ban anyone, um, particularly the ladies. And I'll say why, because I don't know if you know what the numbers are like with
Mhm.
Tinder, but the ladies outnumber men. Well, no, I'm sorry. The men outnumber women 3-1. So 75% of Tinder
Yep.
uh, is men already. And then in addition to that, women only swipe right 5% of the time compared to men swiping right 50% of the time. So what the hell did you do that was so nasty that made them want to get you up out of here?
So a lot of people thought that it was because they like people were coming up with crazy conspiracy theories that it was like I was spreading STDs and like getting everybody sick and stuff. That is not the case. Um, the first time I was 17 when I made an account and I put it in my bio like in 17-year-old idiot that I was 17. So then obviously they took it down. The second time I used to do OF content for like a little bit. And I
You should
put
do what?
my OF links,
Oh,
OF
you.
content.
Oh, and you linked it into Tinder? Oh,
Right.
okay. Okay.
Yeah. And they were like not cool with that. And then the third time I can't remember, but I remember emailing Tinder and manually asking them like, listen, I don't know what I did, but can I please, maybe I like cussed a dude out over like Tinder DMs or something because he pissed me off. I don't remember, but like I was a mess. But he
So, okay.
but oh yeah, go ahead.
So basically, those are three separate reasons that collectively got you permabanned because there was three violations, and none of them were
Right.
directly related to promiscuity in itself, right?
Yeah, no.
And see, see, do you understand what happened here? So that clip, especially this is actually I did clip it, yes, but I took most of what I added some context without like copyright violations, right? So that was like
Hmm.
6 minutes, which is 10 times what was offered on the at least 10 times because I don't think it took up the whole 60 seconds on the everybody who posted it and everything. So it's at least 10 times more for context, but we can only do but so much without you know technically stealing material. So, I mean, if I watch that and the average consumer watches that, they're going to think that they're paying attention, that like who they're looking at right now. They're going to say, you know what? This is a, um, like, I don't even want to say, but it looks like a crazed sex monger that has an insatiable thirst for the D, right? That's what it looks like.
Hmm.
That's what's being depicted here. And from what I've heard from you so far, that's far from the truth, right? So
Right.
it just goes to show you how deadly internet can be, right? This can do
Hmm.
harm to people. Now, I do want to ask you, like, since that, how have you felt? How have you been emotionally? Has it been tough for you watching people continuously thrash you day in and day out? I've been through some of the comments, and people do not care. Even when you came to your own defense, I saw that people were going hard. They did not care, no pics, and when there's no accountability. And people could make up a fake account, and it's not like you're gonna go hunt them down or anything. It's not like they're saying it to your face. They're just trolling. I mean, how did you feel? Did you go through anything?
Yeah, so it was really shocking, especially because I had like what like 500 followers before I went on the podcast, and now I have like 2,500. So it was really scary. I have a long history of unalived attempts, mental health problems. I've been
Wait. What's
involuntarily
that first
committed.
one? What's that first one? What's that first one?
Unalive attempts. I don't know if you can
Oh,
say.
okay,
Yeah.
okay, yeah. Okay, was this after watching that, or before, or both?
Before and after.
So after watching that clip,
Yeah.
it kind of made you feel like that, like enough to.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
and
Yep.
and that
Because I
that's one.
literally. Oh, yeah.
I
Sorry.
was gonna say that's one thing that the trolls don't take into consideration. What if you were successful at it? You know what I mean? You could have been, a contributor to somebody unaliving themselves, right? And people don't take that part into consideration, right? So that's wild. So that was an attempt on yourself after hearing this because it was a lot to deal with. Could you explain to me some of the emotions that you were feeling during this time after the happening, like after this whole post, after everything that was going on?
Yeah, so this was kind of my first experience of online hate, and especially in this space, I think I kind of did a lot to receive it. I have a long history of unalive attempts,
Okay.
um, as well as mental health problems, depression. I'm diagnosed with depression and PTSD. So I was living with my ex at the time, and he just kind of like after the podcast, he just kind of watched me crumble and lose my mind. And I almost had to go to the hospital. Like it was really really damaging to my mental health. And so I took down my Instagram for a little bit, and I just couldn't take it anymore.
Wow. Okay. Whew. This is, and you said you were suffering from depression and what else?
Anxiety and PTSD.
Okay. Got it. So now, when did you first get diagnosed with these particular feelings or conditions?
Um, yeah, I got diagnosed with depression. So the first time I tried to unalive myself, or like even thought about it, I was 12, I think, and I got misdiagnosed with bipolar disorder, and then diagnosed again with bipolar depression, which is a little bit different than bipolar disorder. And then after that, I got diagnosed with just clinical depression and anxiety. So but it's been kind of a long mental health journey to get to this point. I think in rehab, I saw a psychiatrist, and she really helped. So yeah.
Wow. So, was this a diagnosis of everything? I know there were three conditions you mentioned. You said depression, anxiety, and PTSD. Were you diagnosed with all of those at 12, or was it later on that you said, all right, well, now this came up, I'm dealing with something new now?
Anxiety was around 13 when I had my first panic attack
Okay.
at school. And then PTSD wasn't until later, which is really common, obviously, because, you can't really assess somebody's trauma until they, come out of it or come out of the situation until a little bit later on. So from what I understand, I'm not a doctor. I want to make that clear. But yeah, so and I didn't realize, I grew up with an alcoholic parent. I mentioned that in the podcast, but yeah, I didn't realize that it could be as traumatic as it is, and why I'm having nightmares still over everything. And yeah, I mean, I watched my mother fall victim to addiction countless times, and it was really heartbreaking. So.
Wow. So this is something that you've been dealing with since a youngin. This is
Mhm.
terrible. Have you now? You've explained addictive behaviors, right?
Mhm.
And from what you say, your first exposure to adult content was at 9 years old.
Yeah, if anything, it might have even been earlier, like 7 or 8. But yeah.
Okay. How did you discover it? What was it? And just explain a little bit how that went down.
Yeah, so I actually hear this a lot from people, but it was by accident. I think I was trying to get to like some sort of kids website, and the computer wasn't, uh, blocked from adult content, and so I clicked what I thought was a child's website, and then it led me to a porn website. So um, yeah, and I kind of got curious, and I was like traumatized in a way, but still curious, but still traumatized. And so, but I just like watched it for a little bit, and yeah, eventually one thing led to another. And after I hit puberty, it was just kind of off to the races. So.
Oh wow. So when yikes. So that's different. See, for me, I'm a little bit older, right? So we didn't have my first access to adult material was on video cassette. So you had to be very deliberate about it. You couldn't just pull your phone out. You couldn't just jump on the computer and get it. There wasn't any of that stuff. Computers for homes and all
Right.
that, that wasn't even a thing when I was that young. When I was 9 years old, that wasn't even a thing. We didn't even have the compact disc yet. So, we were still it was still floppy disk and video cassette. So there wasn't any adult material on any of that. So, I was able to find it. I found it at a pretty early age too, and I didn't know what to do with it. So you're absolutely curious. Fortunately, I didn't
Hmm.
act on it at a very early age. I kind of waited till I was nearly an adult, right? And but it could have went either way, right? It still makes you curious. You still go ahead and look for it and search for it. And you're like, hey, what's this? And it could be dangerous, right? Especially if you don't have good
Hmm.
examples to tell you what it is. It's an embarrassing thing. It's not like you can go ahead and ask your children. I mean, well, I'm sorry, your children and parents don't talk about it, so you're not gonna ask your mom or your dad like,
Right.
"Hey, what's this?" You might have a couple friends at school and everything, but believe it or not, the first time I was ever exposed to any adult material was magazines. Magazines were a big thing back in the day, and I learned it from school. And being that my parents didn't talk to me about it because they're not from here. They were from South America, so that's not the same thing. There wasn't
Right.
The cultures are different, so a lot of things that I could have been warned about if my parents were from here because they would have been hip to it. It was a different culture. People were more family oriented, right? So it wasn't the same type of thing. Like when I came here, it was a shock for me. My whole life was kind of a shock because if you look at my family, whether it would have been my mother, my sister, they act a certain way, and when I get out into the real world and I'm like, wait, this is what women are like, and it's a different ball game. So me thinking about
Hmm.
family and the white picket fence and all of that stuff, it's a different ball game because the females that I interacted with had a completely different idea. So that's that part. Now for you, when was your actual first encounter with I guess I would assume a boy?
Yeah. So I still don't know how to classify it, if that makes any sense, because I was 13,
Okay.
and it was very, very pressured. Um, I said no about 50 times, and then eventually I just didn't say anything, and then he just did what he wanted to do anyways. So, and granted, he was 13 at the time too, but yeah, so that was my first experience, and it was really traumatizing in a way because I didn't feel like I had a choice in the matter. Um, uh, yeah, so that, and then the second time I was 16 and the guy was 20. So it was like I like in my teenage years I never really had a healthy sexual experience. I mean, and then any sexual experience that followed after that, they were never boys my age. It was always boys that were older than me. So and I lied and said I was 18. So yeah, I've never really had a healthy um interaction sexually. Well, I don't want to say never, but very, very rarely, and especially in my formative years.
Yeah. So all right, that's another thing that people have to take into consideration, right? All right, so you've been exposed to it at a very early age. That doesn't work in your
Hmm.
favor, right? Secondly, what we say on YouTube, we call it grape. You were graped, and if at 13, if you said no 50 times, if you said no once, that's what it is, right? No matter what. Now, 50 times, that's outrageous. So when that type of thing happens to you, the way that you process intimacy is going to be very different. And the one thing that I've
Right.
known from speaking to many women who have had experience or an experience or many experiences like you where they've been the victim of trauma or grape or something like that. Now, one of two things happen. You either become completely shut off and you have no intimacy after that, period, and you just will hate it, or two, you might just become an nymphomaniac, right?
Right.
And that's just that's just part of the game. It's when you have trauma attached to a particular event, it's very difficult to understand how someone else is going to process it. So, what was happening? Um, you were very young at the time. I mean, when you're looking at it from the outside, it's very easy to say, "Oh yeah, damn 304, blah blah blah," but people don't get to hear that part about your first experience, right, and what that does to a human being. That's not
Right.
cool. I don't respect anybody who does that at all. It's intolerable, and it shouldn't be referred to as anything other than grape. That's how you classify it. If you were mistaken on that, if you said no 50 times, it ain't your fault. They took it, and hopefully they were punished for it, because I don't agree with that one bit. It ain't cool. So I could understand why you would feel like that. So do you know at what point where your appetite or craving, as you would describe, just increased? Was it dramatic? Was it slow? Do you know the point where you just decided, hey, look, I'm about to just do what it do out here?
So the corn addiction was ever since like I kind of encountered it, maybe like a year or two after, like after I hit puberty, obviously. It was always a problem. Uh, I would say when the time that I was 16 and which later became my boyfriend, but had sex with that 20-year-old, I realized that it could feel good and
Okay.
it could
Okay. Okay.
be used, yeah, as like a numbing agent kind of, and something that, and it's so easily accessible, and it's not seen as like you don't have to go to rehab for it. You don't have to go to jail for it. You know what I mean? So, um, it was really easy for me to abuse, and especially being a woman, it's very easy to get access to it. So, um, yeah, I just kind of took the reins and yeah, I was hell on wheels. I couldn't stop.
Gotcha. Yeah. See, that's it's a lot to process. That's a lot to process, and I can understand why it happened like that. Now, as it is right now, right? Um, you're different now, right? I would imagine, or at least you're working on it. Have you like at least reduced it to one partner or anything like that? Because you know what's crazy? Like, let's say you did, if you were to do 40 times in a week and you actually did that, and it was with your one boyfriend, everybody would be like, man, I
Mhm.
need a girl like that, right? You know what I'm saying? It would be
Right.
completely different. So the sex itself is not bad. It's just about being responsible, right? Only because of the consequences that come with it, right? You could become pregnant. You could have numerous diseases. Who knows what the heck? Hopefully you've been lucky. I don't know if you want to disclose or not, but hopefully you've been lucky, and that none of that stuff comes up with you. Odds are, like, at the bare minimal, everybody's running around with HPV, right? Everybody. If you were sexually active, they say what 90% of men and 80% of women who are sexually active are running around with that. And then you have other diseases, whether it be chlamydia, whether it be gonorrhea. Those are, what they say, curable. And then
Mhm.
there's the big one. You don't want the Batman forever, and all of these things can come about, right? If you're not
Mhm.
using protection, and certainly if you have multiple partners. So, are you with one partner now?
I'm not officially. No, I just broke up with my ex. So
Okay.
and I won't talk about him too much. He's not a
Okay,
fan of
that's
the
cool.
spotlight, but
That's cool. That's
um,
cool. Some people like to keep it low. That's cool.
yeah, but he's a good guy, and so I'm trying to kind of do my own thing, and this is also the first time that I'm kind of navigating the dating market as a recovered sex addict. So everybody's recovery program or plan kind of looks different. For me, some people wait until marriage to have sex. Some people wait until they're in a situationship. For me, I find the most recovery when I wait until I'm in a official established relationship. So when the Facebook status says in a relationship with so and so, that's when it's good to go. But until then,
That's when you're
no
okay. That's
sex.
when you're getting in. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, you have to have a relationship. That's practical. That's what most of us actually practice.
Yeah.
Me personally, I'm not going to go into financing until I take a test drive. Me personally. So we were not going to get married if I don't know what it's like. I'm sorry, just because that's you have to be sexually compatible, right? I might be into a whole lot of
Right.
stuff that you ain't even up on, and you're not willing to do. So and then I have to spend a lifetime with you. Yeah, right. No,
Right.
no. I'm gonna say no. That's how I feel about it. So with the relationship, I mean, as long as if you've gotten to that point where now you're saying, hey, I want to be in a serious relationship, I think everybody can deal with that, right? Now,
Yeah.
now the only bad part is you're probably gonna have to deal with people um, worried about this, right? This is gonna fade away. People are pretty fickle. You got to just take into consideration that Kim Kardashian, her claim to fame was having a sex tape that everybody saw. Everybody saw her performing fellatio and whatever else that she did, right? And she can do no wrong. There are no brands that are afraid of her right now. She's, finessed that into a $1 billion empire, right? So, and I'm not saying that that's the way to do it, but what I am saying is that I don't think it matters as much. It's not the end of the world, right? You still can be successful. We're just saying it like that. Now, a
Yeah.
lot of people get caught up. A lot of people get caught up in body counts. When you date, right? Do you normally disclose your situation and everything before you get serious? I know it's not like your opener, not your first date talk, but before you get into a serious relationship, would you say that you disclose, like, hey, listen, I used to be out here. This is what I used to do. Do you let people know that?
Yeah. So I do disclose typically by the third date. I'm pretty open and honest with that. I do date guys that are usually in recovery as well. So that way they kind of can understand a little bit more, like like if you're not a recovered addict, there's no way you can possibly understand. You can empathize, but in order to like really experience what it's like to like be addicted to something, you can't know until you're so I typically find that recovered addicts, my ex was one, so he got it, but like recovered addicts are usually the most understanding when it comes to that kind of stuff. So
Okay. Now, does that mean a sex addict in particular, or does that mean more of a um, just an addict by like of anything? Like, could they have been a former drug addict, or does it mean that it has to be specific sexually?
not specific sexually. I mean, it would be nice if it was specific sexually, but it doesn't have to be. But yeah, so and even then, there's cons to dating a fellow sex addict, because guess what, when one of us relapses, both of us do, and it's a tornado and a volcano. So
True. Now, do you think it could be harmful if let's say you are with a former sex addict, if you relapse together, right? But you are able to somehow um, just fulfill each other's needs versus involving other people. Do you think that would be problematic?
are you saying
Like,
like
let's
if
say
we brought other
you're a
people?
former sex addict. You get with another person who's a former sex addict. Maybe you relapse, but your addiction doesn't cause you to go in with outsiders. You just fulfill each other's needs collectively, just together, without involving a third party. Do you think that could be problematic if it's just between you two?
Um, it's hard because it is a hypothetical situation. I would say yes, because knowing me personally, typically if I have a true relapse, there's a difference between a lapse and a relapse, right? So, if I have a true relapse, typically it's going to lead me to those places. There's no like, we can just keep it between us. No, not for me.
Oh, okay. It doesn't go like
So
that. It doesn't go like that. Okay. So let me ask
right.
you. I want to know a little bit more about this, just so we can kind of like give an idea as to what this really entails. Now, what is it about the sex in particular that would makes someone become a sex addict? What is it? Is it the thrill? Is it more so just the idea of having multiple partners? What is it about the actual sex? Is it the intercourse itself? What is it what part of it is addictive?
So, I always explain this to people and like, I feel like a broken record, but for everybody, it's different. For me, because I can only speak for myself as a sex addict, but for me, everything surrounding sex that you can think of is what I got addicted to. The feeling itself is kind of like the cherry on the top,
Gotcha.
So
Okay.
it's, yeah,
The lead
like the
up, everything is a
attention.
thrill. Okay.
Hmm.
Okay. And guys will offer sexual attention immediately, right? So that's the whole thing. Um, do you ever feel like you were neglected, sort of, as a child, as far as attention's concerned, at all?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, I had a really good relationship with my dad. He's been kind of distant, like more in my adult years, but growing up, I've had a really good relationship with my dad. So I'm not really like a stereotype. My mom was kind of, um, where our relationship was really tumultuous. Yeah, and there was a lot of abandonment and neglect, and because she chose alcohol over her children because she didn't have a choice. She was, it's a disease, and we've since rekindled that, and I'm forever grateful for it. But yeah, neglect was all over the place when it came to my childhood.
Okay. And a lot of people say it's daddy issues, but it could be mommy issues too, because in order to have a successful child, in my opinion, right, and a lot of statistics show this, your best possible outcome is a dual parent household, right? If you have both parents in the picture, uh, especially through their impressionable years, if you can get to at least their adulthood when they go to college, then the odds of them being successful in every metric is quite higher than if they had one parent. Now, statistically, I must mention that fathers, statistically, their stats are closer to those of a dual parent household, mainly because of discipline and different things like that. But if there is neglect or some type of trauma in addition to that, it doesn't matter how many parents you have. And secondly, it has to be a household that is not dysfunctional. So you could have two parents there, but if one of them or both of them has dysfunctional behavior, then it's not going to be successful anyway. It's not just the sheer presence of a parent that actually breeds a good child. It's the development. It's the attention, right?
Right.
That's what's important. You have to have a dedicated parent or parents to have the best possible outcome.
Yep. Yeah.
So
Yeah. And oh, go ahead.
no, go ahead. You got it. You got it.
Oh, I was gonna say, yeah. On top of that, my mother's been married 4 times, so I kind of,
Wait, 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 wait.
Combo breaker.
Okay. So, all right, your dad, was he the first, second, third, or fourth?
first.
First. Okay. So since then,
Hmm.
you've had three different dads that were in the household after that.
Yeah, there was one husband where she wasn't like around, and she got married to him, so I never met him, but I knew of him. So
Okay. So, yeah, that sounds like, so your dad, even though you may have had a close relationship with him, he wasn't in the house for a good portion of your life. How many years did you have where you actually lived with your dad?
I I had my mom had full custody of me, and then my dad had weekend visitations, all the way up
Oh,
until I
wow.
was
Okay.
12. Yeah, and then I requested to live with my dad. My dad requested me to live with him, and then he was granted full custody.
Oh, okay. Okay. Wow. So I mean, that's a good thing. And
Hmm.
generally speaking, outside of, what the main topic of the show is and the other podcast, you seem like a solid person to me. Other than that, right? I
Thank
don't I don't
you.
see any I don't see any horrible personality traits. You're not very disagreeable. You're pleasant, right? Mild mannered, um, and overall feminine. So, I mean, I feel like there's some serious hope for you, regardless of that
Thank
situation.
you.
And what I will say is this: a lot of men get caught up. I'm gonna go ahead and put the camera on me too, because I haven't, I haven't had it on, but I want them to see. I want them to see this part right here. So, regardless of your situation, right? Like I said, you're from me, just the vibe that I get, and whatever other footage that I've seen of you, you do appear to be feminine, mild mannered, pleasant, and everything else. I think there is hope for you. Now, the body count thing, that's going to be a lot for some people to deal with, right? You don't have any children thus far, do you?
No.
Okay. I mean, listen, one thing that men don't understand in many cases, right? We really get caught up in body count. Um, I was talking to another person that he's a great YouTuber, my homeboy Afi, and I was on an interview with him, and he's asked me how much I get concerned about body counts, right? And I would say, you know what? You just have to kind of go by how a female behaves. And he was telling me, he's like, listen, man, I just deal with ranges. And I'm like, yeah, you deal with ranges. You figure this person has such and such to such and such. But at the end of the day, which I made another video even before I spoke to him about, how do we know what a woman's body count actually is? Women have the ability to turn the miles back. People don't understand that point. I want you to listen to that again. Women have the ability to turn the miles back. Because, I'm a big car guy, so I use car references. Now, let's say you buy a car. It's a 2020. What's your favorite car?
Probably a Jeep Wrangler.
Okay. Oh, I like those. I'm actually considering getting one of those in manual, of course. But yeah, okay. Let's say you got a 2000 Jeep Wrangler. It's clean. It's got a fresh paint job. The seats are nice. The interior is clean. No rust, right? It drives well. Now, it might have 100,000 miles on it. Will you know the difference? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe they restored it. Maybe they did the proper maintenance. They could have did an engine swap, but it has 100,000 miles. You don't know because you know what? The dealer turned the miles back. It says 20,000 on it. You, as a woman, have the ability to say, hey, listen, I have 20,000 miles. And if you say you have 20,000 miles on you and not 300,000 miles, how am I going to know the difference? If you drive well, if you drive like a car that has 20,000 miles on it, then you won't know. And I'll tell you this, like if you were to buy yourself a Toyota or a Lexus, same company, you won't really know the difference between a 20,000 mile car and a 100,000 mile car. Or definitely you won't know a difference between a 100,000 mile Toyota versus a 200,000 mile Toyota because they drive well no matter what, right? So if the car drives the way it's supposed to, it says, and you tell me it's got 20,000 miles, that's what the dash says, then I just have to take it at face value. Who am I to say different? So at the end of the day, men can get caught up as much as they want about body count, but you really don't know how the car drives. How does the car drive? That's what's important. And I've noticed there's a lot of people who have made recoveries from being obese, right? Clinically obese or even morbidly obese. And, you know, they lost the weight. They took their time. They ate right, did the exercise. Do we care about what it was before? They've recovered. They don't eat like that anymore. They're better now. They're different now. Doesn't matter. Maybe, maybe not. If they look good now, and then you saw, if you're with a good-looking guy right now, say you, he's tight, chiseled, doing everything right, and you find out, you look at his child pictures, he was fat. Are you gonna be like, man, you used to be fat? I mean, maybe not. Probably not. Now, what I will say is this. Statistically, if we look at it statistically, there's a magic number of 6 partners, right? They say if you have 1 to 5 partners, I don't know if you saw all that data and everything, but they say if you have no partners, they say men and women, if you have no partners going into a relationship, then you have the highest possible chance of a successful marriage, right? It's like 90%. Now, when you start dropping off, when a person has 2 to 3 partners, it drops off and you go to 5. That's like the threshold that a lot of people believe. They believe after your sixth partner, then yeah, it's downhill. It's downhill. It's over for you. But what I can say is context matters. I don't think the reason you were doing this was struggling and searching for a relationship, right? You were definitely dealing with something, suffering from conditions, literally. And I don't know. You tell me, do you feel like there were men that left an impression on you that you might feel like you would want another man to be or another man to do? Like, is there anything in your life? Because a lot of men, the main reason why they don't want women who's dealt with a lot of partners is because women sometimes have what we deal with as we refer to it as an imprint. We don't want a lot of women. We just don't, right? We don't want a woman who had a lot of partners. I'll say it that way. We don't want that. And because they bring these expectations to us, they might met a guy that can cook. He left an imprint. Now I need to be a chef. And then she also met another guy who laid pipe like the Mario Brothers. And then now I have to measure up to that, right? And then, this guy had crazy skills. He could dance, he could sing, or he was like super attentive to your emotions. And women have a tendency of trying to take all of these guys and then build it into one guy, right? Not understanding that you can't do that. The main problem I see with women in general is that they don't understand just the ratio. Like when these women say, oh, I want a guy who's 6 feet tall. Yeah, okay, good luck. That's like, 14.5% of men in the United States. And then if you add that stat together, 17.5% roughly are making over 100,000 a year. If you put those two stats together, you have to average that out, and you'll come up with a number that's close to like it's a single-digit number. And then that's without considering the fact that, okay, his marital status, that's going to cut it down. Is he ugly? Does he have a personality? Can you get along with this guy? You know what I mean? There's so many different things that there's so many categories that you have to include. When you ask for these unrealistic things, it's already hard enough. Now, if women have met some of these guys, because some of these guys do exist, and women have access to these guys, right? I'm sure you got access to a lot of dudes, right? Do you feel like you bagged a few tens in your day? Easy, right? So much you probably might not have.
Oh, yeah.
Easy. How difficult was it to obtain a man, in all honesty?
I mean, not in the slightest.
Easy. If you literally sexually, exactly. You know what? That's getting to my next point. So if you wanted to do today, just for the sake of smashing, what do you think the odds are of you executing that?
9.8 out of 10.
Today I got time, cuz.
Listen, she ain't never lied. That's pretty much a 98% chance of it happening from scratch. I'm not talking about vetting. Like, I'm talking about right now. Let me start, pick up my phone and do what I want to do. Now, let me ask you this. Let's just say your average guy, if he wanted to start from scratch and decided he wanted to bone today, what do you think his chances are of accomplishing the same mission?
You said an average man?
Yeah, let's go with the average man. Every
Probably
day, like 5, 6, which is most of the world.
Oh, just start from scratch? Probably like 2 to 3 out of 10.
I'll tell you what. I'm going to tell you this. 2 to 3 out of 10, I would say that would be like your 7s and 8s that would have that type of shot.
Yeah.
I think that the guys that are average, like the 5ers and the 6ers, those guys, 4, 5, 6s, I think that their chance would be like 5%. If they wanted to start from scratch today and actually execute and close, yeah, probably 5%. And if you're below that, it's a decimal, 0 point something crazy. You know what I mean? So it's different. A lot of people don't understand these dynamics, right? We hear one thing. There's a lot of dynamics that men don't understand about women. There's a lot of dynamics that women don't understand about men. And that's the problem that most of us face. So I want to get into a little bit about your podcast right now because you are helping people now, right? You want to help people.
Yes.
So, what are some of the things that you offer, and what's your target audience? What type of people do you want to help?
Yeah, so originally, kind of like I stated earlier, I wanted to focus my podcast on sex and love addiction as far as women are concerned. But I've been getting so many like DMs from these guys that are like, listen, I think I'm addicted to porn. I can't stop watching it. I'm really insecure about my body. I'm, scared that I'm never going to find anybody. And I figured that was like the biggest market that I want to tap into because sex addiction is more common among men. I'm not too sure on why, biologically, but I think love addiction is definitely more common among women. I'm not too familiar with love addiction. I'm definitely more familiar with sex addiction. So, yeah, I definitely want to change my target audience to both men and women. Um, and basically just give advice, especially living in today's hookup culture. I think third wave feminism at least, has kind of destroyed what we see relationships as or are supposed to. I can't tell you how many guys I've had guys lead me on for months and months at a time, and then when I finally did have sexual contact with them, they tell me they want nothing to do with me and they weren't looking for anything serious
Yikes.
anyways, and they just left. So yeah, and I've had that happen. I can't even tell you how many times. So it's really hard. It's really, really hard. So yeah, that's basically what I am hoping to achieve.
Yikes. So, I was just looking it up real quick before I don't like to just spit stuff out over here. So, basically, men's testosterone levels are exponential to women's, right? That's the hormone that makes you more aggressive, that makes you much more sexual, right? And that's why men are normally considered to be sexual addicts or whatever. So, and I'm going to describe my interpretation of addiction, not the feeling or the urges that you get, because men generally get the urges. If you're in shape and your T levels are high, which they should be as a man, you're going to be in the mood a lot. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Now, it's just like anything else. Just like if you see a cake, we all want to eat it. It's a fat strawberry cake. Name your favorite cake. You're going to want, every time you see it, you will want to eat it. It's about us managing it, right? And that's the same thing. So, like, just even if we say our emotions, right? Things piss me off, right? But it's about what I'm going to do. Am I going to react in a violent manner, or am I just going to brush my shoulders off and be like, okay, cool? So that it's not about the feeling you get. It's how you manage your feelings, right? I wouldn't go crazy if someone told me, hey, they get urges men get urges a lot. It's about managing it, right? It's about you just saying, you know what? You have to be disciplined enough to say, all right, well, that's not a go, right? It's just like anything else. Just like a dude who gets up and works out. Nobody really feels like getting up and lifting weights for the most part. I mean, you do because you know what the results you're going to get and everything else, but you don't really want to do it. Most people don't really want to study. A lot of people do have a yearning for knowledge and things, and I do, but a lot of people who go to school, most of them don't really want to study, but they want the rewards of it. They want the knowledge, they want the credentials, so they do it because they're disciplined. So I wouldn't go crazy about urges that you get. It's how you manage them, how disciplined you can be, right? So with men, how do you tackle that? How do you approach it? If a man tells you, what would you say to a man in particular who might be dealing with it? What would you say if they tell you that, hey, look, I'm struggling with addiction. What should I do? How could you help them?
So as far as recovery is concerned, I have plenty of, I always put the links in description of virtual Sex Addicts Anonymous meetings. And I always tell them to ask their doctor to refer them to a CSAT or sex therapist, basically. That's what it is. So that they can get the professional help they need to begin with. And then as far as like where my services are concerned, the best thing that I can do, because I'm not a male sex addict, right? I'm a female sex addict. So it's a little hard for me to be able to give them concrete advice that they're going to be able to take to heart and use in everyday life. So the best advice that I can give is that coming from a woman, like I can give them hope in being able to, sorry, I'm trying to figure out how to phrase this correctly. I can give the female, what's that?
Oh, I said take your time.
Oh,
Don't worry.
oh, okay. um, Coming from a woman's perspective, I'm hoping to be able to give them hope that uh, they, that they can find love eventually, and they can get these impulses under control, or not impulses, but acting out behaviors. That's what we call them in Sex Addicts Anonymous. Uh, and know how to treat women as human beings. I think porn definitely has a big influence with that, as far as like objectifying us completely, and I think once we present ourselves as like human beings first, and uh, like humanize ourselves, it makes it a lot easier for men to take us seriously. And I've had that experience a lot in my DMs, after I've given men advice, they say, oh my gosh, I thought you were this, crazy 304 just running around in the streets, and you're like actually trying to help me. Like, this is really, beneficial. And so, yeah, I think coaching them and encouraging them to not take everything at face value.
No, that's actually some solid advice. I got to give you one on that. That's solid advice. That's solid advice. So, on your road to recovery, I mean, it seems like you've done a lot better. As far as the other addictions, are you completely removed from that? Are you 100% clean as it is right now?
Yep.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Do you also offer some help for that if someone were to come to you and say, hey, listen, this is something that I'm dealing with? I understand you're not a professional, but what would you say in an instance like that if someone did come to you because maybe they weren't comfortable speaking to people that aren't so relatable? Because I know that some of these people that are assigned to you are not always so relatable, right? What would you say to somebody like that?
I would definitely. So I actually went to rehab and got resources through the SAMHSA hotline. I can't remember how to pronounce it, but I
Okay.
put that in the my link in description as well. I can't sponsor anybody in a program yet because my clean time. I had like a brief relapse recently, so my clean time is a little bit too short. Um, but I would definitely refer them to a program, or substance abuse counseling is great as well. And one day at a time. That's my biggest. Any addiction, any recovery that you're struggling with or you're trying to overcome, one day at a time. Whether it's 1 minute, whether it's 1 hour, just one thing at a time. And that's my biggest piece of advice.
Not bad at all. Not bad at all. So this is great. This is great. So, I think we covered very much so. But what I do want you to do, right? Is there anything else that you had that you wanted to discuss before we go into closing out? Do you want to discuss anything in particular? Do you want to? Is there something you want to mention?
I I just want to, I guess, kind of like a PSA, or whatever. You know, uh, I really want to let people know or inform people that anything that I've done on the internet, or anything that I've tried to present myself as, it's always been good intention. I've never meant to make anybody feel insecure if their body count's lower, and they're a man or anything like that. I never meant to shame anybody. I never meant to. It was always with the best intentions, and I'm always trying to help people. And and I said this on the Whatever podcast, but if I can even help one person, then my job is complete. And so far, I've helped a lot more than that. So so far, I'm really happy. So
Yeah, keep that going. Keep that going. Keep that going. Keep that going. Um, so there is one more thing that I want to ask you. So
Mhm.
for anybody who may have just um, watched the video, right? Particularly the trolls, right? And you don't have to go thermonuclear, but I want you to give them a serious message um, about just judging a book by its cover, or even just making an inference on someone without actually looking for the context. And I understand that they won't, right? But just so when people watch certain clips, right, that are designed to draw emotion, um, I want you to tell them how it made you feel. What do you think, and how they probably should try and interpret videos moving forward.
Um, Yeah, so my initial reaction was like fight back, because even when I got bullied in middle and high school and stuff, I never let myself get bullied. I always like beat the crap out of kids that were like picking on me. So I never was incapable of standing up for myself. But I think in this circumstance and in life in general, um, I just feel bad for them. If they don't have it in their heart to look beyond that and know that there might be more to the picture here, and actually do the research, because there are people that do. So there's not really an excuse, right? I pray for them, and I hope that they can find it in their heart to move on, and find their own way of happiness, and not be chronically online. That's my best advice. Get off the internet.
Gotcha, gotcha. So yeah, this has definitely been a great experience here. I'm so glad that you were able to give us the time and you know talk to me and let everybody know and set the record straight. I'm very happy for you for what you're doing right now. I do understand that it could be very discouraging dealing with things and the internet. I've had people, nobody ever threatened me for death, but people say some really fly stuff to me all the time. Like, it is what it is. If you ever looked at any of my videos, people say a lot of things, right? They go hard because, especially when people are miserable in their own lives, the best thing that they can do is try to drag somebody down with them. So, it really just rolls off of me. I don't really care. But I understand this is very sensitive, and this is a life experience that you've dealt with, and people are making light of it. And I didn't know death threats. Now, I do want you to tell me this. I want you to explain before we get out of here. We didn't get into that part. I want you to explain that one part. Can you explain to me like this death threats and how that went down? Did you actually get death threats?
I did. So I only received one or two, I think, and it was in like the hidden request folder. And I think Instagram like saw what was happening and like took it or removed it from my DMs immediately. But yeah, so it wasn't like direct like I'm gonna kill you or whatever. But I think I had one message that was like, you know I hope you fucking die. Like I hope somebody comes and kills you and your whole family or something like that. And yeah,
Damn.
it was like whoa, yeah. So yeah, people were really angry with me.
Yeah. That's pretty wicked. I didn't think it was gonna get that crazy. Some
Hmm.
people just take things way too seriously. I mean, and not to say that this isn't a serious matter, but not to the point where you want to feel so passionate about it that you want to, threaten people's lives. That's outrageous to me. That's just what I think. But
Yeah,
yeah, that's bogus. That to me is bogus.
yeah.
So yeah, I definitely wanted to just go over that. But either way, we definitely appreciate you for stopping by. I hope that you also have other opportunities for other podcasts and things for people to talk to you and set the record straight because, this information that you've given, it's enlightening. And a lot of times we don't think about the why. I'm always concerned about the why. That's for me. Why? Why did Kelsey come on the podcast and say these things, right? And again, I didn't really dig it until I saw what your comments were, and I was like, oh, it's deeper than that. And that's when I went and did my little mini investigation and found out what you really do and a much more accurate assessment of your character I have now, right? Because of me doing the homework and digging in. And hopefully many people will understand and see this for what it truly is, right? And for who you truly are. All right. And keep doing
Awesome.
good work. You're fighting a good fight. And you said you have a lot of red pill topics, right? Just touch on that real quick because you said you talk some red pill talk. Let me hear you talk some red pill talk. Spit some red pill
Yeah,
talk.
I got time, cuz.
Oh man. Well, here's the thing with the red pill community, right? I think on paper it makes sense for the most part, most of what they say, right? Like I think on paper and like in theory, yes, um, like for example, fresh and fit, and when they say like, men's thirst for sexual desire is insatiable, and I think to some degree that's true, right? But we're still evolved human beings. I don't think that gives the man I'm in a relationship the right to step out and sleep with other women because, like if anything, because then I'm unhappy and it makes me feel insecure because there's a chance of him coming home with a disease or getting other women pregnant. So, like it just doesn't, like, that's just crazy.
I got you.
Like,
Now listen, this is what I'm listen to this, right?
mhm.
All right. So men, we get these urges, right? We when we want to go, we want to go. It is what it is, right? That's what we need, right? Now, does it mean that you have to go out and smash everyone? Not necessarily. I don't think so. And I'll tell you why. You can find a woman who's about it. I've met some women who will smash most men under the table, right? They will survive. They will survive, handle your insatiable thirst, and still be waiting for more, and you will be tapped out. I've met some women like that I couldn't keep up with and didn't have any desire to because I just at some point I have to be productive, and you know what I mean. I can't, right? So there's some women who will smash you under the table. It is what it is, right? So, a lot of men. I think you went out. There you go.
Oh,
So a
sorry.
lot of men. It's all good. A lot of men have that desire, right? And I think it can be met by certain women, and that's why I say you have to test drive. You have to see how you are compatibility wise, right? Now, if you're trying to deal with a man that has, and this is another thing that Myron says. He says that men who don't cheat don't have the options, and most of us don't have the option to cheat. If you left up to our own devices, we probably would be out here wilding, right? We'd be getting it in. It is what it is. We would be getting it in because you have the options. If there weren't for the consequences, then yeah, there would be melee. But I mean that applies to most life. If you could go to the bank right now and did just go take the money out and nothing would happen to you, would you do it? No consequences. You could just take it. Would you do it? Keep it G. Don't even.
I don't know. I'm in recovery,
If there
so
were no
I'm
consequences.
on a
If
different
there
wave.
were no consequences. If there were no consequences.
Sure,
what
I'll
I'm gonna
say sure.
Most of you don't have to, but I'm going to tell you, yes, I would. I would go in there and take it off. If there's no consequences, if I know for a fact that I can't get locked up or judged or no consequences, and I can just go grab the money and use it for my own good or bad, I'm going to do it. Damn right.
Mm.
Now, if men were left to our own devices, many of us would go ahead and get every woman we possibly can because there was a point in most of our lives where we just could not ever, right? So we would. Most of us are disciplined enough to adhere to society's constraints right now and will be content with one woman if we feel like that woman is desirable enough. Not every man feels like that, though. There are some men who have the fear of God in them or just for whatever other reasons and don't want or don't desire, depending on their upbringing, that they are just a one-woman man, right? Me personally, I'm married now. I don't really care to go ahead and smash a million women. I'm way too productive for that. I don't have the time, and there's a lot of consequences and drama that come with that, right? Women want to tell on you. Women want time. Women want attention. There's the you can impregnate someone. There's disease. There's a bunch of consequences that would deter me from not wanting to do with that. I don't want to disrespect my wife. I decided to get married and make a covenant. A whole bunch of reasons you don't really, me personally, would not want to do that right now, right? But what I will say is if there were not the consequences, many men would want that, and they would do that. The men at the top have more options? Absolutely, they do. So they do deal with multiple women because women will deal with them knowing that they have to share them because they are so desirable because women all want the same thing. They all want the same thing. They want a guy who's tall, like 6 feet. They came up with this metric Y. A girl who's 5 feet even or 4'11" will still want a guy to 6 feet. That's just what society has told you should want and you should expect. 6 feet. I don't know why they came up with that. It's weird and it's imperial. It's not even metric. That's weird. Why do we end up with 6 feet? Whatever. Okay. Then they want you to make 100,000. 100,000. It isn't that much money. I'll be honest with you. $100,000 isn't going to get you far, but that's just the threshold that people came up with. If this were 1995, then I'd say 100,000 would get you a lot. You can survive off of it though, but the average male makes about 50,000. So if you're saying 100, you want double the average. What are we doing, right? So, but when women come up with these metrics and then you check a lot of boxes, right? Then you're going to feel like you have it because the women set the marketplace. If women ignored these guys at the tippy top or treated them the same way that they treated the guys in the middle, then they wouldn't behave like that. But because they do the same thing that men do for beautiful women, they're going to get away with a lot more nonsense because they're desirable. They're considered desirable to society. So when you go ahead and pedestalize these men or women, the men who check the boxes and the women who are beautiful, right, then they're going to have an overinflated sense of ego. It is what it is. And they're not going to change. They're going to, because those options are in their face and people are willing to deal with different things. I promise you, a dude will deal with a lot more from a chick who he considers to be a bad one. Like, is she bad? Versus somebody who is a 5 or 6. She's not going to get away with all of the same nonsense, right? You won't tolerate that. Just like a woman will tolerate a lot more nonsense from a dude who she feels is her version of an alpha male, right? Or Sigma, or just checks the boxes. She's going to tolerate more. So women would rather share one of those top tier guys to just be a part of that versus dealing with a 4 or 5 or 6. It is what it is. And that's why we have the issues in the sexual marketplace right now, is because men have overvalued certain women and women have overvalued certain men. And it is what it is. You have to deal with it. If you want that type of guy, then you have to deal with that. If you are okay with dealing with the average man and you're okay with working yourself to help provide, to make it in life, then you're going to get a guy who's not going to behave like that. Most guys that I know that are not making hundreds of thousands of dollars or better, they chill. They're not really trying to get a million women. They know they can't really maintain a bunch of women. They can't maintain the issues of a bunch of women. So this isn't something that all men are looking for. They're not all looking to deal with a bunch of men. That's just what it is. Most men are not going to have access to a bunch of women. They're not going to be able to maintain it. So if you are looking for a man who's more so on the average and you can deal with him not being 6 feet, you could deal with him having a little dad bod, you could deal with him providing 50,000, then a lot of these dudes will tolerate a lot of things. A lot of these dudes will pay you more attention. A lot of these dudes will be more loving because they understand they have to compensate in order to keep you. So it is what it is. And sometimes they just might be genuine with it, right? They don't have that ego. Some men are actually loving. Some men crave love a lot more than women do. Men love hard, and it's not conditionally. Women do love under conditions. Women can't really love a dude if she don't respect him. Women can't love a dude if she doesn't feel like he's a prize, right? He has to be on a certain level for her to have that respect for him. And with the lack of respect, she cannot love you, period. If she does not respect the man, she cannot love him. And a man cannot love you if you don't respect him. So that's how I feel about it. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's hard for me to speak on it because I'm not, and I hate to say this because it sounds cliche, but I'm not the average woman. So I don't, I wasn't raised, I don't even know if you could say it's like a parental thing, but I just have never had the desire to be in a relationship with a man for money or like marry him for money. You know, like I just, in fact, I've actually, especially since out of being in recovery now, I've actually found it like repulsing to some degree because it's all chaos. Like there's constant access to alcohol and drugs. There's constant access to multiple women that he could sleep, you know, or cheat on me with. It's just not appealing to me. So I'm one of those women that would rather have, you know, an average guy and kind of like, you know, only have time for me and cater to me and, you know, make pretty good money. And I've always made more money than the relationships or than the guys that I've been in relationships with. So it's never really been a point of contention for me. And I don't know, but I'm also 22, so it's different. You know, I think the older you get, the higher your standards get. But I don't, I and here's the thing that kind of gets me. I don't hear that from most women my age. You know, like we kind of understand that the men that we're looking for, like even if you're looking as old as to 25, like in our dating pool, they're not going to be 6 foot and making 100 grand a year. But the problem that we run into is getting them to commit because of hookup culture. So for us, the prize isn't necessarily that 6 foot guy that's making 100 grand a year. The prize is him even wanting to be with us in the first place, you know? So, because there's some guys that are, you know, I would even say below average looking that I've went out on dates with, and they say, no, I'm not looking for a relationship right now. So, you know.
And I'm going to tell you something about that. It's about the perceived value, right? So what I will say is that you have to offer value to this particular man, and different men will consider different things to be valuable. Some men, beauty is just that. Now, every man will appreciate a beautiful woman, right? That's nearly
Mhm.
every single man. But as for some of us, it's at the top of our list. Some of us, not so much, right? But what they really desire is someone who's attentive to their needs. That's very high on most men's list. So let's say whatever it is that he does, if you compliment his life and you are willing to add value to his life. So let's say that he's I'll give you like a wild example, but it'll make sense. So let's say like we're doing this video right now, right? Let's say I have a wife that edits. That makes my life easy. You know what I'm saying? I don't mind editing my own videos, but let's just say I did, and she knew how to edit just like I edit and could pump a video out. That's value. That's not only utility, but it's value, right? So it makes my life easier. Let's just say I don't need her to do that. Let's say when I wake up, I have less time to do things. I can tell you how my wife in particular offers value for me, right? We have children. We kind of work in a more of a traditional sense to where she does many matters for the children, like parent-teacher meetings. She's there. A lot of times I'm doing things. I spend as much time as possible. I still go to like, you know, their events at school and everything like that when I can. And I do hit most of those, but there's a lot more parental involvement that she has. And as far as doing things, taking care of things at the house, making sure the matters at the home are cool, there's a lot of that I don't have to do. Anything that's masculine, of course, me, I do it, or my son, he does it. But she's able to make my life easier and enable me to be able to do the things that I do right now successfully. And that's what men appreciate. So if you can offer value, so you have to figure out what type of man you mesh well with, right? And you'll learn better about that. It's better to learn young because that's when your market value is the highest. Right now, you're in your peak market value. You're 22 years old. If you were to find a permanent mate right now, you're going to find the best you possibly can, right? A lot of women make the mistake of thinking that when they're 30, they're more valuable. Not necessarily, because women, once they pass 30, they've dealt with more relationships. They're more reluctant to deal with men. They're more reluctant to do certain things. They've been taken advantage of a lot of times. And then now they feel like everything this man does is trying to take advantage of them. They're not as amicable. They're just not, you know? So that's what makes it more difficult for men to deal with women who are older, because they're set in their ways a lot of times. They've lost their youth, their fertility, which men are physically attracted to, and or at least are on their way of losing, right? You're not going to say a 30-year-old looks as good as a 22-year-old. In most cases, that's never the case, right? So those are some of the problems that you get once you're older. So right now you're in you're at the best market value that you are going to have right now. But it only declines after like 25. It starts to, you know, go down. And a lot of it is not necessarily all physical. Physical is definitely a big part of it, but we're missing so much more after that, right? There's so many things that we value as men that women lose as they get older, and most of it is them dealing with a lot of relationships and then coming up with these unrealistic expectations for us, right? They become more demanding, just crass and just bitter, jaded, and a lot of that starts to happen when you run through a few bad relationships and you're like, oh, that's it, next one, I ain't taking this, I ain't doing that. And once a woman starts to do that, yeah, that relationship isn't going to last. You're bound to fail. Once a woman gets to the point where they feel like, oh, I ain't taking this, I'm not doing that, you're not taking advantage, you're not going to use me. Excuse me, there's a value exchange here. No one's using anything, because at the end of the day, the man must provide. You won't love a man, period, if he can't provide some type of value, whether it be monetary or something else. And that's how I feel about it. So, if you had, go ahead. You had something?
Well, I was gonna say, yeah, and I think I think that's why, like, uh, sorry, I'm trying to figure out how to like formulate this into words. I don't think it's necessarily that like, like women are kind of cursed, right? Because I think biologically, yes, at 30, we're seen as less valuable in the marketplace. But I think at 30, whether you're a man or woman, that's kind of in a place in your life where you're like, okay, your career is established, or you could even say 27, 28. Your career is established, you're kind of set in your life, you know what you want. Um, you know what kind of parent you would want to be, and now you're kind of approaching taking relationships a little bit more seriously. So I do agree that men find women my age and like more attractive, but it's just kind of, what do we want, so it's kind of a give and take, because I think most 30 or most 22-year-old women like me, or you could even say it's ingrained in us through feminism. I'll give you that. We're not really looking for like marriage right now. Like that's just not where we're at in a place in our life. So
Yeah, that's understandable, right? And nothing is definite, right? I don't want everybody to think that this is, and we're only speaking in generalities, because I can tell you right now, there are some 30-year-old women who are fantastic and are good to be married, right? Me in particular, I knew my wife way before that, but by the time we actually got married, she was over 30. So we'll say that, right? But it definitely has a lot to do with your experiences, right? And in general, women who have reached that age have had many experiences that are going to leave them jaded, right? That are going to leave them reluctant to want to care for a man and put that time in and actually offer the value, because they've been taken advantage of by someone else who they may have thought was the guy, but they were looking for the wrong types of guys, right? They go for the hot boys, and then they go for the dudes at the very top, and the dudes at the top have a very different mentality of things. So when you deal with one of those guys, and then God forbid you had a child already, and now you want me to come in and pick up the pieces, and because you made some poor decisions in your life, now I have to pay for those poor decisions, right? And I think that's mainly the experiences. And generally, by the time a woman reaches that age, she's had some terrible experiences with men that would have her jaded. That's the main reason why men generally don't want older men. And I'm not going to say that it's impossible for women to be in their 30s, even 40s, and maybe occasionally 50s, right? But it all depends on your experiences. What type of experiences did you have, and how you learn from them, right? Let's take your experience, for example, right? You've dealt with the drug situation right now. You were able to quit at a very early age. You dealing with those same situations could have changed you into something completely different, right? Fortunately for you, you are now in a position to where you want to help people, but you're an anomaly, right? And that's why I think you'll be able to win, because there's not many people like you who have been through your experiences and then now are in a position to help people. And that's why we use these general rules, because I've interviewed a lot of women, I've talked to a lot of women, a lot of men, and that's what I do. I've been doing it for a little while now, and we go by the generalities, and we can't it's not set in stone. If you meet somebody you really like, then you're just going to have to do a deeper investigation on their character and really spend some time. Take your time. Don't jump into anything because you have to find out how this person is when things are not so good, right? When things are rough, when you're maybe struggling
Right.
financially, or maybe when you're dealing with some serious turbulence. How will they react? Is the respect still going to be there? You know what I mean? Are they still going to want to do what it is that they've always done to you or for you when you're not at the top? And that I think is truly important. And I think that's the most sustainable element, right? When you can actually still show me respect long term through the ups and downs, right? Are you still going to respect me as a man if I'm struggling financially to provide but still working on it? That type of thing. Now, for a lazy bum who just don't want to do anything with himself, nah, that's out, man. We're not doing that. I understand it, but somebody who's actually going in a direction of a rational, like where you really see the potential there, and he's really doing some things that are tangible that you can say, look, this is okay. I see where he's going with this, and I trust him. If you could trust in him and you feel secure, then are you going to show him that respect? And that's what we're worried about, right? Men don't want.
Mhm.
Men don't want to deal with that because it's a scary thing. Because for men, when we decide that we want to get married, if we want to go through the paperwork, it's very dangerous for us. We're the ones that are going to lose financially. And a lot of people say, well, so what? Just do it again. So what about finances? You think money is everything? Money is everything. Almost. And I'll tell you why. It's going to determine your diet, what kind of foods you can eat. Can you eat at Whole Foods, or are you going to go to the bargains basement to buy your food? Are you going to be able to eat healthy? It's expensive to eat healthy. I don't know if people understand that part. It's expensive to eat healthy, right? Like your children. It's going to determine where your children go to school. It's going to determine how safe the neighborhood you live in is. All of that. These are things that are extremely important, right? You will be able to take care of yourself according to how much money you make. That's very important. Your lifestyle, your quality of life is affected completely by how much money you have. So that's why I say money is extremely important. So now if you lose everything, you lose half your retirement, your whole thing, and you're gone, you're asked out. The wife, in rare cases the woman, but what is it, like 90% of the men actually have to provide after post marriage. So if you look at that, men don't have anything to gain from that, right? Because if you lose all of that, it's not like she's going to have to provide any of the services which she used to provide before. She doesn't have to do any of that anymore. She's relinquished of all responsibility post marriage. Only you are still responsible for her and whatever else you add to your life after that, which is absurd, but that's what life is, and that's why we see there's such a great risk for us to get married. And we take the plunge. We are putting all of our faith in you as a human being who we have no control over the decisions you make.
Yeah, I mean, get a prenup. I don't know. I mean, I'm all for prenups. Just get a prenup. I mean, it's and here's the thing: if she doesn't agree to it, then that's a problem, right? That like I'm fine with signing a prenup. I have no problem doing that. So if why would you have a problem with it if you weren't planning on getting a divorce? It's just in a very worst case scenario. So yeah, that's what I always say to guys who are like, well, if we ever get divorced, I'm screwed and blah, blah, blah. Just get a prenup, dude. Like, it's not, and if she doesn't agree to it, then it's clearly a sign that you shouldn't be getting married, so.
Yeah, I could agree. I also, I did a video on this a little while ago. I would certainly recommend, I mean, there are some tax breaks, but other than that, there's not many. If you did a spiritual marriage, right? There's no, like I said in the video, I couldn't find a holy book that says that you must do the paperwork. I've never heard that you had to get the government involved. You can simply do a spiritual marriage, and then if you decide to part ways, then hey, it is what it is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's another option too. So men have to be a lot smarter on that. I'm glad you agree on that. Men have to be smarter on it, but I still do agree in the sanctity of marriage, even though it's definitely different. So I still agree that you should the most successful, if you want to raise a family, of course, if you want to raise a family, you want to raise children, then that's your greatest chance of success is through a dual parent household. The statistics matter. Yeah.
Right.
So I know I dragged it out a little bit extra, but you know, you did offer some red pill talk. I couldn't help but to dive in a little bit on that. So I'm glad you're able to do that too, and let them know where your skills are in that realm, and hopefully you develop into a monster pretty soon. I know you're young right now, but your experiences are not. You definitely had enough experience for a grown ass woman, so we're gonna let you be great over there. So let people know what your channel is, right?
Chronicles of Creating with Kelsey Davis.
Got it. And where could they find you on Instagram? I'm gonna give you all these links in the description as well. So anybody who's watching now, I'm gonna provide all of her links to her channels just so you can see it. But shout out your Instagram.
Yeah, my Instagram is the Kelsey R Davis.
Awesome. Yep. This has been great. Anything you want before I close it out? Anything you want to say?
Again, I know I thanked you before, but thank you for having me on, Trevor. And this was an awesome opportunity. And thank you so much.
No problem. No problem at all. All right. So give me a second. I'm going to close it out. Just hold on. Sit tight for a second.
Okay.
All right. Anybody who's made it this far in the video, you damn sure like this. So please drop that like button. Currently, a lot of people in my space are being suppressed. So it is imperative that you hit the notification bar. I've seen a lot of people get through the suppression by, you know, people hitting the notification bar. You must hit the notification bar so you know every single time we drop some heat for you. We definitely appreciate you for watching us. Check Homegirl out. Kelsey's got some interesting videos on her that I'm definitely understand you'll find useful for sure. And if you have not already subscribed to the channel, please do so. We appreciate you for definitely rocking with us again. I know this was a little bit of a lengthy episode, but there was a lot to be said here, and I felt like we really needed to get that point across. And as always, stay hungry, my friends. Never thirsty.